Okay, at this time, I would like to reconvene the board meeting from closed session, and we have a couple items that I need to report. First of all, by unanimous vote, the board took action in closed session to approve a resignation agreement and release of all claims regarding an employee identified by banner ID 00385015, effective January 31, 2020. In addition, the board also by unanimous vote, the board took action in closed session to approve the expulsion of student ID number 00396224. And so with that, I would like to ask if everyone would please stand, and I would ask Ray if she would lead us in the flag salute today.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, also like to report that board member Greg Sherman is not able to be with us today. And so we'll be the four of us today. All right, so per public comment, per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time, either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker with a maximum time of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. Do we have any public comments concerning items that are on the agenda today? None. Public comments concerning items not on the agenda? Okay, none as well. We'll move on to board and executive staff reports, starting with our student trustee, Ray.
Yeah, so since we last met, we had our soup day. Basically, we gave out free soup to students and crackers, and it was pretty great. That was on January 30th, and then we also participated in the Meta Majors Summit on the 31st. We really enjoyed being a part of that discussion. The majority of our board was there. We also appreciated the opportunity just to be a part of that. We're really proud of the growth that COS is working towards. It's pretty awesome. We also are still working on giant voter registration. It's going to close up pretty soon, but we're still, working on it. We also had Club Social on February 4th. That was a lot of fun. It's basically just an opportunity for board members and club officers to get to know each other. We also had our meet and greet with senior management and student leaders, gave out free donuts and coffee, and we always appreciate them taking out the time out of their busy schedules to go out there with us. It's always a lot of fun. We also are going to have Club Rush this Thursday. That's always fun too. We're also going to have a basketball tailgate on February 19th. We're going to give out free food, free hot dogs and chips to the first 100 people. And that's just an effort to encourage more students to go out there and support them. So yeah, and then we're also going to be hosting a regional meeting on February 28th. And for the region, that's just the student senate's basically in our region, and we're going to be hosting it this time on February 28th. And yeah, that's it for my report.
Good job. We're busy.
Did you help make the soup?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
What kind of soup was it?
What did we have? We had minestrone, I think, and chicken noodle.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
She cut the donuts too. Got some huge donuts.
All right. Thank you, Ray. Board member reports.
I don't have a report, but I just want to make a comment that I'm looking forward to the on-site visits to our local high schools. I believe our first one is this Thursday in Woodlake. And so that's always exciting to interact with the school site boards and share what are the great things that COS is doing for those students once they leave high school.
Wear that tie on Thursday. That's Woodlake's colors too.
It is. It is.
Okay, Mr. Lane.
I think I ate my way through the representation. We had two events that the COS Foundation sponsored. A table one, the Lemoore Chamber of Commerce annual dinner, which was very nice because it was honoring Daryl Smith for his time that he had spent in Lemoore, and hopefully I'm not taking your speech, Tim. So it was nice to have his COS family there representing him. He acknowledged that from the stage and all that, so that was very nice. And then also the Rotary, the annual Rotary fundraiser, also the foundation sponsored, and so we're here for that.
Report. Okay. I attended the COS annual baseball event, which was the first time I've had the opportunity to attend, and it's quite a turnout for that event. And I think because I attended that, the baseball team is off to a 9-0 start.
Yeah, that's
So
why.
I'm taking all the credit. Not only that, but for $20, I got a nice bottle of wine out of the whole deal. I wouldn't have known how nice it was.
He's gloating some
until,
more.
I know.
Dr. Lacerna pointed it out to me. So anyway, that was good.
Of course.
It was a mystery bottle of wine. You pay $20, and then you reach in and grab a bottle, and sometimes it's a $50 or $100 bottle of wine, and sometimes it's a $5 bottle of wine. He pulled out the $100 bottle of wine, and Dr. Lacerna pulled out the $5 bottle of wine.
Which one got opened at the table?
We all know Ken, not the $100 bottle.
I'm going to wait till it turns into a $200 bottle. All right, well, very good. So next up is Foundation Executive Director, Mr. Foster.
Well, thank you to Trustee Miz and Trustee Lane. I don't.
That's our goal.
We needed that last month,
Yeah.
Foster.
Here's short
The
report.
night of the national we needed a no report the night of the national championship game.
I gotta learn how to time this better.
So, Mr. Foster, do we have the travel, travel situation for tomorrow?
Yes, you're gonna join us at the parking lot by the police station at 6 a.m. so we can go up to the Fresno State of the
Oh,
University.
okay, so are you going to wait if I'm late?
You will get the courtesy 5 minutes. That's
Okay,
like
good.
everyone else.
I was probably going to make 6 or 7 other people very mad if I'm late. All right, Dr. Lacerna is ready with the accreditation report.
Still mad about my
And we
my
have,
$5 bottle.
Oh, you
Gotta hold a grudge.
We opened it at the table. It was actually not bad. Thanks, Tim. Oh, you're part of that, right? Okay, so accreditation update. We have a lot of information. Lots has happened since last time. So a couple of local things. Dr. Sarah Harris and I will both be participating in accreditation site visits in March, and we just came back from our team training, which was really interesting. And another thing I wanted to share was Dr. Harris participated in the 10th cohort for the WASC Seniors Commission, their Assessment Leadership Academy. And attached, it's the third page in your packet, is a letter that I received from WASC Senior thanking the college for allowing Dr. Harris to participate. It's the one that looks like this, says WASC at the top. Thanking her for us for allowing her to participate in that, and how great a job she did in that program. And I know that just this Friday she was invited to present her research at the statewide Student Learning Outcomes Symposium. So that was a really good participation from Dr. Harris. In the middle of the first page then, I think most of us have heard, but Dr. Stephanie Droker was selected as the new president for the ACCJC. And I've copied in the letter that we received with the information about Dr. Droker. And so when we were in LA last week for our team training, we got to spend some time with her, and really excited about her coming on board and being the new leader. She's going to do a fabulous job. In the middle of page 2 here, there was an update on January 27th from Ian Walton, the chair of the ACCJC, that Richard Wynn actually retired February 7th, and Dr. Droker is now president-elect and will be finishing out his term until I don't know her exact start date, but she's finishing out his term. So she is now officially the president. There's in the bottom of that page, the Accreditation Commission meeting was in January, the beginning of January. There's the actions on the accredited status of 26 institutions attached. So that's the last page in the handout. So if you guys want to turn there, it looks like this. Review that really quick. It's the last page in your packet.
Oh, okay.
The very last page. On the first page, you can see these are the colleges affirmed for 7 years on the basis of a comprehensive eval, and then a follow-up report reaffirmed for 18 months and require a follow-up report as Cuyamaca. And then there's several that reaffirmed for the remainder. New colleges granted candidacy are the California Preparatory College, Madera Community College Center, which is in our north group here, our neighbors, and then our Prison University Project, which is the team visit that Dr. Ozturk went on. So they were all given permission basically to open as colleges by the ACCJC. Midterm reports, and then on the very back, Barstow Community College was granted a good cause extension and require a follow-up report. So to me, I believe that is kind of extending trouble. They were in trouble for show cause or like a probation, and they're giving them some extra time to follow up. And then these 4 colleges are all part of the same district. Berkeley City, College of Alameda, Laney College, and Merritt, they were all issued probation and required a special report. So that's probably about as harsh as a penalty that the ACCJC gives right now. But I want to point out all of those, their issues are based on the chancellor's office level issues. And so there's not issues at the individual colleges, but there's issues at the chancellor's office and board level. But because it's a district like that, the district does not get a... the district isn't accredited, the colleges are accredited. So if the district is having issues, all of the colleges get imposed sanctions. So all 4 of the colleges are on probation for issues at the district level. So that, I feel pain for my colleagues at those colleges right now, but they're working on that. Okay, I'm gonna, back to the second page. There's 3 policies out for review right now. The policy on competency-based education, policy on institutional degrees and credits, and the policy on direct assessment of learning. And then they also have just appointed 2 new folks to the commission, Lori Gaskin and Mary Okada. And then Sonia Christian from Bakersfield College will begin her term as chair on July 1st. And then there's also 4 webinars coming in up. The quality focus essay, the tips and tricks on the fiscal report and annual report, equity part 1, equity part 2. And I wanted to point out that I was looking at this today, and our own retiree, Christine Staton, is presenting on the completing the annual fiscal report and annual report. So she's doing some special work for the ACCJC and presenting one of their workshops. So I was happy to see that.
Nice.
So that was a big report, lots of information. Any questions?
All right. Questions for Dr. Lucena?
I
All right,
would just
so,
note on behalf of the board, if you pass along to Dr. Harris, our pride in sending one of our best out to share with the other districts.
I'll let her know. Thank you.
It takes extra work to present, I know, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I'll tell her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very nice. All right, we will move on to our President Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. In just a moment, we have a very special introduction to make. But before that, I just wanted to share some good news. We shared it at our board retreat 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to share it publicly. Just the results from our AB 705 efforts this past fall, the first fall that both English and math were working with AB 705. I've got a few handouts up here in case anybody is interested. Many of you have seen this report, but it just shows that in the fall of 2019, the number of COS students enrolled in English 1 in their first year jumped up by 63%. That's 1,328 students. And as a result, we had 55% increase over the number of students that successfully completed English 1 in the fall. Almost 2,200 COS students passed English 1 this past fall, compared to 1,406 in the fall of 2008. So kudos to everyone involved in that, not the least of which is our English faculty, who did a fabulous job of implementing AB 705. As did our math faculty. If you turn the page there, you see that we had a 961 student jump in the number of students that were enrolled in Math 21, which is our primary college level math class. That was a 118% jump over fall of 2018. It resulted in a 72% increase in the number of students passing Math 21. That went from 580 up to 999. So this will be something that we continue to monitor. As you'll see later on in the board meeting, it will remain one of our board priorities for the 2020-21 year. But we are off to a fabulous start, and started with the faculty, but AB 705 touches all parts of our campus, and everyone should be commended, including the board, for their hard work on AB 705. We're off to a flying start. Yay!
Yay.
Thank you, Lori. Lori had my back.
I'm excited.
We don't quite have a budget update yet. Vice President Perez and I are anxiously awaiting the recount for 18-19. We're still cautiously optimistic that the student-centered funding formula for last year will be close to completely funded here soon, which could mean additional surplus for the 18-19 year. But more importantly, that money will roll into the 19-20 year, our current year, and bolster our budgets for this year. Recalc is due by the end of February, and then P2 for the current year is due right after that. We need to get last year taken care of so we know what our starting point was for the current year. All that should come to a head in the first week of March. We hope to have a report for the board at our next board meeting. And then finally, I just wanted to thank everyone involved with the activity over the weekend. I think we had 3 baseball games, a couple of basketball games, a tennis match. We had a talent show in our theater on Saturday night, as well as a youth cheer camp. And all of those young cheerleaders and their parents came to our basketball games that night. It was a packed house. The band was there. Just a heck of a lot of fun. True college experience, as we like to say. And I just wanted to thank publicly everyone that plays a part in that, because it was a heck of a lot of fun. Tiring, but it was a heck of a lot of fun. So thanks to everyone that was involved with that. And then finally, we do have a new manager to introduce tonight. We're excited about that. To do the honors, I'm going to invite up our Dean of Student Services, Mr. Juan Vasquez.
Good evening, board. Come on up. We have a new director of career services. We're excited to have someone of this caliber and with the experience he's bringing. 17 years as the executive business director with Visalia Naz. So he's connected with community, and that's what he's going to be doing for and with our students with career development. He's also no stranger to our district. He's been teaching student success courses for the past 2.5 years, and he's been assisting our track and field program for the last 1.5 years. So, without further ado, Will Hobbs.
Thanks, Jessica said I only have 30 minutes, so no, I just want to say thank you. Yeah,
Seconds.
Unprepared. I am grateful for the opportunity, having married a Visalia native and moved in here in town 29 years ago. Really have come to fall in love with the community as a junior college graduate or community college graduate from Southern California. I value the education I received and the role that our college plays in the community. And as the Director of Career Services, my opportunity to connect the business community with our students in terms of internship opportunities and unifying the roles and the responsibilities of other offices on our campus to really serve our students well. I'm excited for the opportunity, so thanks so much.
Thank you. Welcome back. Okay.
That concludes my report.
All right, very good. We will move on to academic Senate report. I see Mr. Turner here, and he is going to tell us a report.
He's not moving real fast.
Okay. Next up is Mr. David Hurst, and going to give us his report.
Report for a change. I did want to just issue, I want to point out that English and math faculty in particular, but faculty across the campus have worked really hard to stay ahead of whatever the current initiatives are. And I think, because they change. And to be involved in the accreditation with the campus and everything. I think we probably have more collegial stuff going on than probably ever in the past. But I do want to issue a note of caution about these figures. So I teach English, which means math is not my strong suit. But it doesn't really take much to see that even though 2,100 students passed, it means that 1,200 students did not, which is more than at any previous time, right? So the work is not done, and it's hard to compare. You can't compare just English 1 enrollment to past English 1 enrollment because we had a wider range of English classes in the past. And so we have a lot of work to do to parse these numbers and figure things out. And I just want to be a little cautious because that's a lot of students that didn't make it through, and they get 2 chances, and then you've got to start petitioning, and there's all kinds of problems. So I think we still need to figure out what students need, and especially to disaggregate these numbers and know if any of our impacted groups need more work. So there's a lot we need to do, and I just want to congratulations to everybody involved, but let's not think that we're riding off into the sunset just yet. We still have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely not. Thank you, David. I think one thing that they told us from the very beginning is that our success rates would go down. We just there's more students in these classes, our success rates would go down. We didn't see as much in English as maybe we thought we would, but it could happen. The alternative is those students would have maybe started 2 levels or 1 level below, and I don't know what the
stopout rates are high.
Yeah.
So the percentages.
And so to get to get passing grades through 3 straight classes, that number, if you take 60% times 60% times 60%, you end up in the 25% area as opposed to what we're showing here. So
no question. And what I really hope is that maybe they'll just stay with this for a little bit so that we can wrap our minds around it and start to get
instead
it.
of changing it.
Yeah, don't change it again in 2 years.
Absolutely. Don't let this be another guided pathways where we get a different format every single year.
Right. Yeah, and you can never track your progress.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
David. So,
I look forward to hearing Dr. Anderson.
These statistics, these are, just to follow up on what David said, these statistics are for one semester. One semester, so, we're gonna need to, like you say, work at it and see where we're at after 2, 3, and Dolly's gonna get all that data sorted out.
He's excited.
His brain's already going.
We have several reports to be released too. So, it's fine.
You want to share those tonight?
Not ready.
Maybe tomorrow.
All right, very good. CSEA, I see Mr. Terry here, and he says no report.
Thank you for being here.
And next is COSAFA, Dr. Erickson.
I often got tongue-tied when I heard that we only had 5 minutes to speak, and then I saw at the Academy Awards that they had 45 seconds. So I thought 5 minutes is actually a luxury. There were 3 of us from the COSAFA Executive Board who attended the Meta Major Summit, and like our student representative, student trustee, that was a very fun event. It always is when we have a gathering of every aspect of the community. We're beginning the bargaining process, just to think about what our reopeners are. We usually do that in March, and so we have started that already. And one of the things that I want to say again, thank you for honoring office hours and the availability of our adjunct faculty for students. We had 91 who applied, and because of your generous funding, all of those except for 1 was approved. So I believe that was the latest. And so I really do appreciate that. I had a adjunct faculty member who had taught probably about the same year I started, so 14 and a half years ago. And she called me on Sunday afternoon, and she said, "I'm so glad that you encouraged me to apply for hours," because she had never applied before. And
I'm here.
So much for sneaking in.
Just like the Grammys or the Oscars.
just sneaking in, and kind of like the Academy Awards where the music starts.
Perfect.
Was that Keith Whitley? Luann, was that Keith Whitley?
That was Keith Whitley.
My goodness, that's 30 years old.
30 years old.
But the adjunct professor said that there was a student who had missed the start of school, and it came in late, older student who had had a stroke and really required a lot of time. And I was told that spent over 2 hours with not only the student but with the spouse, just trying to get that person caught up so they could continue their studies. And it was just one of those times to say, you know, I never really thought about the time we spent with students, but it was sure nice to look forward to having that compensation as well as the heart that the teacher had extended to the student to get them on the road. So thank you, everybody.
All right. So, Dr. Erickson, if you need it, Dr. Waldner is willing to yield 2 minutes of her time towards, but apparently not necessary.
That's funny.
I know you love. All right, so we are moving on then to information items, starting with item 1, and President Calvin is going to introduce Mr. Anderson.
We are thrilled to have Christian with us tonight. His original sabbatical was supposed to be presented last year, but because we were not able to find a replacement for his economics classes, which are very, very well attended, Christian came to us and just didn't feel comfortable taking his sabbatical when it was originally scheduled, didn't want to leave us high and dry. And as I said last year, we so much appreciated that, Christian. I think you did it twice for us. So we've been waiting a long time to hear this, and I know you've been waiting a long time to present it. So welcome, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Like everything that we do at COS, this was not something I did on my own, right? It took a lot of support from a lot of people, and at all levels, you know. So I'd like to thank, you know, some administrators, Dr. Lacerna for one, and Jesse Wilcox, who's not here, but you guys did at the last minute. I'm going to get a little choked up because, I mean, it was at the last minute. You guys really came through and helped to find someone, you know, to take over my classes, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I also wanted to thank some faculty members, in particular Marla Prochnow, who is here. Here's Marla. and Joseph Teller, who also was very supportive through the whole process. There were some staff members that really supported me along the way, including Austin Begg and Ryan White and Scott Brogdon. Without those 3 guys, I wouldn't have been able to do my project. So you're not here, but I want to thank them. And then I also want to thank the Board of Trustees. You know, I can't thank you enough for supporting professional development through the sabbaticals and the institutional improvement programs. It means a lot to me personally, and I think it means a lot to faculty that we have your support. And so I wanted to say thank you to the Board of Trustees for supporting this. So my sabbatical project itself was fairly straightforward. I proposed that I would complete 8 classes within a 10-course curriculum through Johns Hopkins in the field of data science. These are the 8 classes. But I thought perhaps maybe some people might be wondering what data science is, so I thought I would address that before I went into like the work that I did on my sabbatical. First and foremost, it should be understood that data science is a multidisciplinary field, right? It draws upon mathematics, certainly, computer science, informational technology, and also like specific domain knowledge, right? So those domains would be different applications, like perhaps healthcare, obviously education is another one. Business information would be another domain. So it's actually the combination of all three of these elements into one, and in combining them, the field aims to answer a couple of questions. First of all, where do data come from, right? So, and that is often mysterious, right? Sometimes we make the assumption that data just sort of like falls out of the sky or whatever, but it's not the case. It's actually quite complicated, and the answer to that question has import on the kinds of decisions that we make with, or maybe should not make with the data. Also, what the data represent, right? We need some context for understanding the data. So this is also a big part of the so-called mission of a data scientist. And then third, and probably maybe what you guys are most familiar with, it's using that data to make decisions, right? So support data-driven decision-making. So all three of these things are elements of what the field of data science attempts to, provide. Now, it's also an academic discipline. It turns out that data science is the hottest field in academia right now. It's one of the most popular majors. UC San Diego, a couple of years ago, I think 2 years ago, instituted or created a new data science major, and it's already impacted. There are more students who are looking to become data science majors at the University of San Diego than there are spots for them. And within the last 5 years, and this is quite uncommon. In the last 5 years, several flagship institutions and universities have created data science departments. These include Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, University of Washington, I already mentioned UC San Diego, University of Virginia, Boston University, and the University of Chicago. And just to give you some idea as to the scale of the resources that these institutions are putting towards this new emerging academic discipline, MIT is planning on spending $1 billion to develop their data science programs. And because it is multidisciplinary, a lot of that money is being spent working to integrate both the humanities and the social sciences with these other fields of mathematics, statistics, and computer science. Furthermore, data science is also a career. And one of the reasons that students are so interested in pursuing an education in the field of data science is because the job market in the data science area is booming right now. For 4 years in a row, data science has been the number one job according to the recruiting site Glassdoor. Last year, LinkedIn, I don't know if you guys are familiar, I'm sure you are familiar with the career networking site LinkedIn. LinkedIn last year did an analysis of the job market and found that data science was the fastest growing career. They found that job postings in 2019 in this field increased by 56%, which is tremendous. And also, PricewaterhouseCoopers recently issued a report, and in that report, they determined that there would be about, in the year 2020, about 2.7 million jobs related to the field of data science. Many of these are not for data scientists themselves, but what employers are looking for, and it was sort of hinted in that first teaser slide that I had up, is that employers want people with data. Even if you're not a data science, employers want to have recruits that have data science or bring data science skills to the table, and they also concluded that the competition for these types of recruits was going to not only be fierce, but it was likely to remain fierce over the next couple of years in the foreseeable future. So now that I've hopefully given you a little bit of an introduction into what data science is all about, I want to shift gears and go back to my project. Those 8 classes. I'm really happy to report that I passed my classes, right? So
We want to see the transcript.
I'm happy to provide it. Actually, happy to provide it. But you can see how close it came right there. There's a date of 1/7/2020. I shared this with Jennifer. I share it with you too. This whole experience was very humbling for me. I wasn't very good at doing something new, it turns out, and I think it's really a great experience for an educator to have the experience of being a beginner and to feel what it feels like to maybe be a little bit overwhelmed by having to learn all sorts of stuff that you don't know anything about. So anyway, wonderful experience. In addition to the 5 classes that were included in this Foundations of Data Science certificate, I also did 3 advanced classes, and there's still 2 more classes that I hope to finish to do the full 10 course program that's offered by Johns Hopkins. So I'm going to wait for the summer to take a little bit of a break and do those over the summer. But anyway, I got the 8 classes done that I proposed to complete during my 1 semester sabbatical, and I'm really proud to have done that. I don't know how interested you guys are in this, but I wanted to give you maybe just a little bit of a perspective on the kinds of things that I learned how to do in this over this semester. And I don't remember if you remember that definition, but it starts with understanding where the data come from, and oftentimes the data come in this format. So this is data from the National Weather Service in a flat text file. So one of the things that I would do then, and by the way, it's a freaking mess too. I mean, there's just tons and tons of problems with it. Things are miscoded. So the first thing that we would do is write some computer code that would clean and process the raw data, and then organize the information and produce some information that might be actionable. So from this file of data from the National Weather Service, I produced a graphic that identified the 10 most harmful weather events from 2001 to 2010 in terms of fatalities and injuries. There you are. Yeah, tornadoes are bad. You can see that. It's very clear in the data. And I don't know if you can appreciate this, but by looking at that text file, you would never know how bad tornadoes are. Excessive heat is also very bad. Actually, something we are familiar with here in the Central Valley a little bit. Yeah, so anyway, this was very typical of a project that I worked on in completing these courses. So all of this is meant, though, to be a benefit not only to myself, but also to the college, right? You guys approve these sabbaticals, and I think with some expectation that the professional development that we receive somehow pays off for the college. And I'm super proud to talk about this little baby step that I think is a direct result of my ability to take the sabbatical. We, in September of 2019, you guys all approved this class, Introduction to Data Science. This class is important for a number of reasons. for one thing, represents an alternative pathway for our students to meet their mathematics requirements under AB 705. So it's pending approval, but if everything goes according to plan, students, in addition to being able to choose from, let's say, Math 10, Math 21, Social Science 25, Business 20, will also be able to choose to take Social Science 108, Introduction to Data Science. Also, I'd like to point out that this class could possibly lead to other things as well that I think might be really important and beneficial to our students. The curriculum was developed in accordance with a technical paper that was produced by the American Statistical Society and the NSF in response to some of those statistics that I had presented in the beginning. There's a shortage of people with these kinds of skills, and so there's a real push. I don't know if you noticed, but I mentioned a bunch of like tier 1 research universities when I talked about the kinds of institutions that were really investing a lot in data science education. There's actually only one California community college that has a data science program right now, and I believe it's Saracoso. And I think that's a shame. I don't think that data science ought to be something that is only taught in tier 1 four-year research universities. I think, and again, that white paper that was produced by the American Statistical Association and the National Science Foundation came to the same conclusion. We need to be teaching data science at the 2-year college level. In fact, their report was teaching data science at the 2-year college. That's how important it was to them, and wanted to emphasize it. In any case, like I said, this class could be the beginning of a data certificate. There's a movement. This was all unfolding very quickly, but I was just recently contacted by Fresno City College faculty. Faculty there are looking for other community colleges who might be interested in jointly producing an online certificate, something similar to that happened with the cybersecurity certificate that I think was recently approved by the Chancellor's office. So, we can take some baby steps, I think, towards providing these kinds of opportunities for our students here, and this class is the first step in that regard. And so finally, I'd like to go back to that very first slide that I had put up and point out that, again, thanks to the support that the Board of Trustees and administration, faculty, and staff have provided here, I can honestly say that, that COS students students that come from our institution are going to have an opportunity to be exposed to these kinds of skills. And the academic leaders in this room hopefully will be able to say with some confidence that at COS students are going to have these kinds of opportunities. So I was told to keep it short. Hopefully I kept it short enough, and there's still some time for some questions if you guys have any.
Okay,
I have a
thank you. I'm sure we have some questions.
I'm curious to know what started you down this path to realize the importance of it and then to go further to pursue this sabbatical in this field.
In this field. Okay, so there's a couple of things. One thing, that you probably don't know, is that I'm very interested in math education and statistics, and I've had another paper accepted at the American Association, or the American Educational Research Association. It'll be my third paper I presented there this year, and so this issue, like dealing with data and educational data in particular, has been something that I have been involved in sort of informally. I've worked with Dali on a number of small projects that have been very gratifying, and if you are, I guess, if the Google algorithm has identified you as a certain kind of person, your news feed ends up getting filled with with articles like, data science is the fastest growing major at UC Berkeley, right? It just keeps getting dumped on me.
So
right?
they found you.
They found me, yeah.
This university had a good data
Yeah. So
compilation.
and frankly, learning computer programming language was something I had no experience with, but I'd always been sort of interested in finding out more about. And this seemed like a perfect opportunity to be able to help the college develop a new course, to give me the opportunity to learn a new skill, something that, again, I thought I might enjoy, but I really didn't know for a fact. And then also to develop my last paper that I submitted to AERA, I didn't use any of the skills or the programming language that I had learned, but if I were to write another paper, I would definitely use R to do the statistical analysis and to write the report. So it was kind of a multifaceted.
Thank you.
What other courses do you teach?
I teach the principles of microeconomics, the principles of macroeconomics, a course called Introduction to Economics, which is for non-majors, and then I also teach statistics. And then starting in fall 2020, Introduction to Data Science. Yeah.
I'll jump in and just commend him as well. He's being a little bit modest, and he hasn't mentioned the fact that he's also the co-chair. He volunteers his time. He's the co-chair of our institutional review board, our IRB. We're probably one of maybe
just a small number
of community colleges in the state that have an IRB, but they're very, very important for reviewing and approving or disapproving the number of research requests that we get here from either faculty and staff or students on our campus, or graduate students, doctoral students from Fresno State and so forth. We have an IRB. Christian and Dolly co-chair that group, and it's a real value to our college, and it's a lot of work. They both tell you it's a heck of a lot of work, and what Christian's been able to pick up here through this, I really think will pay huge dividends in that role as well, because they rely on a lot of these concepts pretty heavily. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you too.
Good. We enjoy hearing back the fruits of your work.
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you for
I
being here.
feel privileged to be able to.
Good.
Christian, can you give us, so you mentioned that, was it UC San Diego that
Yeah.
has this major, and they've had it, so can you give us a feel for the folks that get that, graduate with that data science? Where are they headed off to? What kind of things are they doing?
Again,
Is there a way to tell?
Yeah, so the field is multidisciplinary, right? So agriculture is using data these days, right? So one of my best friends is the CFO for Harris Ranch, and they've got a big data project going on right now. They could work in artificial intelligence, right? So there's another field. Business analytics. So students go, and by the way, the starting salaries are astronomical. With the BA, the starting salaries in data science are in the low $100,000 mark. Competition is fierce for people that have these skills. So yeah, they're working all across industries. Finance is actually, banking and finance is another a big area where insurance, healthcare, all of these industries are employing data scientists.
I'm starting to think that athletics.
For sure.
Given the fact
Sabermetrics,
that
absolutely.
What's going on with the Houston Astros, no, I'm serious. That was a very, it started with some kind of sophisticated Excel spreadsheet that had trends and had.
Michael Lewis wrote one of the best books ever called Moneyball, about using data science to
that movie too.
to basically improve the Oakland A's.
Right.
I mean, it absolutely is applicable across fields. Whoops, I got a little excited there. So thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
Okay, very good.
I
Anybody
might
else?
need to change my major soon.
Come talk to me. Love to have our first major.
Can I add something
being
We'd
there.
like you to stay another semester, Ray, so.
A couple more years.
Right, can I add something?
Yes.
Okay, so I had a chance to sit down with Christian on Friday and look at all this before he presented. And I just wanted to also point out, especially for some of the newer board members, the work that Christian's done volunteer with the college for so long. He was one of the 6 of us with Dr. Robinson, Dr. Ozturk, Dr. Trimble, me, Christian, and Matt Beret, who sat in the PCR for a year.
We became a family.
Yeah, every night writing the show cause report and all of that. And so he has a history of incredible volunteerism for the school, and I just appreciate that so much. And Superintendent, yeah, we can clap on that one, right? Yeah, now he's running for another volunteer position, basically. Well, it's got some reassigned
It
time,
does have
but
some reassigned time.
for Academic Senate, so for the FEC chair, which is the group that decides on sabbaticals. But really quickly, I know Superintendent Calvin already mentioned this, but the first time he was supposed to do this sabbatical, we had a teacher all lined to come in and teach his classes, and at the last minute, the teacher couldn't come. And so he canceled his sabbatical and came back and taught. And then the second time, the same thing happened. And that's what he was referring to, that Jesse and I just went, no, we're not going to do this again. He was ready to drop it and come teach again, and we were able to make it work. So I appreciate him doing that. And then just the ongoing work with COS. I know he already mentioned it, but the class has been approved. It's going to be taught, and it really brings an incredible amount of equity here, and I appreciate that focus. And the other big thing, one of the grants we just got is through CVC OEI, which is the online consortium of colleges throughout the state. And this course, like he said, now there's this opportunity that it might be taught by like 4 different colleges coming together to teach a program. And I just think that's really exciting, and that he's willing to do that. So I just wanted to add a few things. And I sat with him on Friday, and every question I had, he's like, oh, it's on the next slide. It's on the next slide. I'm like, oh, perfect. He had it all prepared. So I just wanted to add that and thank him again.
Way to go, Christian.
All right, thank you. All right. So we are moving on to item 2, and Dr. Lucerne is back for the low enrolled justification.
Okay, so you have the low enrolled report here in your packet. The first one is the low enrolled, and that is the one, let me see where it is, I think they both have the same title on them, but it says for spring 2020, and it's got more classes in agriculture, so that should be the top one that you have. So we have this, again, there's a requirement for us to show you which classes are low enrolled or canceled, but I want you to, in context, understand that in comparison to this, there is, 1,200 classes that have a lot of enrollment. And even when you look at a program like agriculture, who has a few low enrolled classes, there are just as many classes that are over enrolled and full and with wait lists. So you can see here we have a few classes in agriculture that have either they're a single section or they're required for a degree. Business, the same thing, they're required for a degree or a program sequence. On page 2.
I was wondering why the X.
That group, the one with the X's are the canceled classes.
Okay.
So I'm looking at, if you look at the other report first,
Oh, I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah, that's okay.
if you guys have that one first, we can do that one first.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay,
do
so
that one
you were
first.
on-
Sorry, I was in the wrong order.
okay.
Okay, so these are the canceled classes. So any
Yeah,
class
okay,
that,
now
I
I'm
apologize.
back on.
Now we're back. I didn't look and see what order you guys had it in. I apologize. So these are the canceled classes. So this would be anything that was canceled after basically either students were enrolled or no students were enrolled and it wasn't enrolling. So we're supposed to report to you anything where a class was canceled. And we at all times make every effort to get those classes to run. But these would be classes in the area that we canceled. The X just means it was canceled, and then they have the reason it was low enrolled. So there's a group of classes in agriculture, a few in business, one in consumer family studies. We had a few in English, and again with English, on the next page as well, this is a new thing for us because as we're adjusting to AB 705, we've just had to constantly adjust, and our faculty have been great about making changes as, building a plane as we're flying it, and move classes and change classes and teach other things. So that's we'll see a little bit more, I think, in English and math over the next few semesters as we try to figure out.
Is this way
where.
more than though? That seems like a lot.
Oh, for English, yeah. We usually full, and we have a ton of wait lists and that. We just usually have a few, but because we didn't know how many classes to offer because we've never had this before, and then we didn't know because we have co-requisites, so some with support, some without support. We were just balancing what that was going to look like, and so and then in the end with most of these we ended up adding the next level of English, which is English 2. So we were getting more students on the wait list for English 2, which is the next course, and so we were adjusting that at the same time. So there's a lot more English 2s than there has been in the past as well, because students were more successful.
Because the overall enrollment was up 5%.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why. I just look at, like, everybody talks about how hard it is to get English. I'm like, well, 17 got low enrolled. That makes sense. They got replaced with 2 then.
Yes,
'Cause you're
in
still
most
figuring out-
cases, yes.
Yep, okay, or a lot. That's fine.
A few classes in fine arts, a couple of classes in industry and technology, and then a couple classes in the foreign languages. And then the same thing with math over here. And in most cases with the math classes, they were changed to either a different level or something with support. It just was a really difficult semester for us to figure out what was going to happen with English and math. And we usually don't see those types of cancellations with either area. But same answer, Lori, we were trying to adjust as we went. A couple of classes in farm tech, those were canceled because they were replaced with new classes. Science, a couple of classes in social science, and then a few classes in student services. So those are the canceled.
Is the threshold for low enrolled a percentage or a fixed
It's
number?
based on our board policy, and the board policy is a minimum of 20 students for a lecture course and a minimum of 15 students for a lecture lab. And then there's a list of areas that we there's a whole list of 8 to 10 areas that we'll consider. So if it's a program sequence, so if it's the 4th course that's required to get a degree or a certificate, then it goes down sequentially, so 80%, 70%, 60%. If it's the only course that in the evening, or the only course that's offered during the day, we can consider those things. There's a lot of different variables that we can consider for that. And then there's always the number 9 is, I think it's number 8 or number 9, is that the vice president has a chance to make a decision that, yeah, we need this class, or we don't need this class, either way. So. And then the other report you have is the low enrolled report. And so these are courses that we went ahead and ran anyway, even though there were less than the amount of students. And then the justification based on that board policy or the administrative procedure is written on the side. So you can see, for example, like if you look at plant science 118, Tulare, 14 students, that class, the minimum would be 15. So it was off by 1, but it's required in a sequence, and it met the threshold that we needed. Then business, there were a few classes there, but you see like 18, 19, 17, we're not going to cancel a class that has 17 students, has 18 students, and it's required, that's a good enrollment as far as we're concerned. Especially if we have numerous, offerings, or in the case that it's only offering at night or in the day. On the next page, Consumer and Family Studies, we have a couple classes in our fashion program. We have a brand new full-time faculty member who's working to fill that, but 18, 19 is really good actually for the fashion program. English, you can see we were all over the place again, same explanation, and we don't expect to see that. I would expect to see it the next 3 semesters in English and math, and then we'll hopefully have adjusted by then with the data from the data science that we'll be using, right? Fine arts, typically for some of these programs, they're very specialized, and so with like lighting for the theater and things like that. And again, the deans are constantly reviewing this with the provosts and within their own areas to see what adjustments we need to make. Industry and technology, these you can see they're all around 12, 13, 14, and so those are required to have 15, so they're very close to what we need for a lab course. The next page is, again, the languages and ESL, and we're working closely with those programs to adjust and make sure that we're offering the right sections in the right order. Math and engineering, same issue we've already talked about with math, and again, working closely with the deans and the faculty to get that adjusted. In science, these are your typical courses that you would see. And this one that has 6, we normally would not run 6, but it's a lab, and there's a full lecture with 3 labs. So just the lab portion was under-enrolled. Social science, a few courses, and again, this support for statistics is the same. There's a lecture course, and this would be the co-rec for that course. So there's a full course, but only 6 students require this co-requisite lab. And then student services, again, a few sections. But again, all very close to 20, and when you compare that to those full sections and the wait lists and the big courses, it really outweighs, balances out each other.
Do we get one of these in the fall and one?
Every
Yes.
semester, every fall, every spring.
Okay. All right. Any other
And this
questions?
is pretty typical. The only difference really, like I said, is the math and English, and it's because of these changes that we're going through so rapidly that we don't have time to keep up with them. But
All
we're
right.
analyzing them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up is item 3, quarterly budget accountability for the quarter ending December.
Good evening, Board. Yes, Budget Accountability Act or report for December 31st, 2019, second quarter. So I'll kind of, about 7 pages, I'll kind of go over it. It's kind of slow, so y'all can pick up on it. The first page is basically what it's telling you is any differences between what was brought to the board in January 13th, to now. The number I do want to point out to you is this number. Let me try to make this bigger if I can.
They got it in front of them.
Maybe not. You got it right there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So 772 as January, 782. And then on the right-hand side are the variances. On the top, A is the revenues. And then the bottom part, B, C, and D are the expenditures. And we'll get to that on another page. But basically what it's saying to you is as of today, February 10th, we're estimating our ending fund balance is going to be about $782,000. Remember when we did the adopted budget in September, it was about $1.1 million. So you kind of see the change there. Again, this is kind of a blow up of what I just discussed. And each section is month by month. So it kind of go over, so what do we do in January, December, February. You'll see the February's highlighted. It's going from 772 to 782. So it's a $9,000 additional ending fund balance. On the revenue side, kind of explains what the changes are. And I'll show the change right here on the revenue side was that $6,000 that you just saw on the first page. It was a true up of rental income. So that was a $6,000 plus in our revenue. And then the expenditure side, again, I won't go all these. These are by month. You'll see the October, see the headers there. October, November, December, and then we get down to February, and you'll see those adjustments. So basically, it was a decrease of expenditures of $3,000. You net those two, it's a $9,000 positive flow into an ending fund balance of $9,000. Then we'll get into any adjustments on our revenue side. Again, our adopted is on the left-hand side. Our annual projections are in the middle. And you kind of see where we're gauging how much revenue is coming in for the fiscal year. Remember, it's halfway through the fiscal year, December. So we've earned about a little over 50% of our revenue coming in. And that's typical. Most of the revenue is either your property taxes or your state apportionment. And that'll come in by the end of the year there. Again, there's some reasoning why the revenue's gone up. And then on the expenditure side, the left-hand column is what we took to you in September for the adopted. Working budget is what you see now, any kind of changes that we just show in the budget accountability report. And then year-to-date spent. So our budget is 71.3. We spent about 34 million. So we spent a little over 40, I can't read that, 49%, 48%. I need glasses next time. So 48% spent, which is typical, 50%. And then again, your cash balances. Again, this is as of January. I wouldn't get too worried about it. Just know you do have cash. We do have cash in the bank, but these numbers will change throughout the fiscal year as money comes in, expenditures go out. And each header is each category. And your left hand is the one we really look at is your general fund unrestricted cash balances there. So any questions on the budget accountability report? Basically what it's telling you is what any kind of variances from revenue and expenditures.
Okay. Number 4.
The next one is the Community College Financial Statement, CCF 311 report. It's the quarterly report. Again, this is a summary of kind of what we just covered. The top part, Part A, is you had your 3 fiscal years that just ended, or previously ended. So 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. And if you look at 18, 19 that ended in June, our ending fund balance percentage, you see it there. And then what our projected is on the right-hand column as what we're doing right now, what I showed the last report. So we're looking at 31.7%. The adopted budget was at 32. Remember, we went from $1.1 million to about $782,000 right now. Again, the kicker is end of this month, when we finalize 18-19, could be a significant amount of dollars. If we read into what significantly reduced is, what that means. Remember, it was a $103 million shortfall. So we might be looking good for 18-19. We should. And then whatever that is, as Superintendent Calvin said, that will roll into our 19-20 budget. So that'll be looking good. Kind of makes hard predicting community college budgets, right? Because we're going to find this out in February, March, and the budget, and your year ends June, so you have 4 months. So luckily it's to the plus. And your analyzed FTES is no longer collected here on the 311. That's on your 320 attendance report. Section 2 is our cash balances, what we have in cash balances. And then Section 4, again, is a recap of what we took to you and adopted for September. It shows a 32% ending fund balance. What we're looking at annual-wise, remember that 782, 188 number there? That's where you catch it there, 31.7%. Again, one of the board priorities is to make sure that we exceed the state average on ending fund balance of 21%. So we're looking good there. And then we'll find out how it ends up February, influx any kind of one-time dollars. And then some other questions. Have you settled with any employee contracts during this period? No. Do we have any significant financing or any kind of debt that we have on campus? No. And the last one is, does the district have any significant fiscal problems that must be handled or addressed this year? And that answer is no. So that's the 311. Yeah, those are all good to have. The last one, no. Any questions?
All right. Any questions for Mr. Perez?
Thank you.
All right, I think we're
Thank you.
pretty good on that. And item 5, the college promise update. Ms. Morrison is going to.
I've got a special guest here from Financial Aid, Mr. David Levering.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so today we're going to give you an overview of the last 2 years of our implementation of the COS College Promise and show you kind of where we are data-wise with some of our numbers and just present some ideas as well. So.
There we go.
So starting back 2017 with Assembly Bill 19, and it's kind of when we refer to the Promise Grant Funds right now, our jargon around the office, we say it's AB 19. mainly because they came out with the California College Promise. They also came out with the California College Promise Grant about the same year and creating a lot of confusion for folks. So we still like to say bog fee waiver and AB 19, things like that. So we started AB 19 2017. The legislature wanted to we're coming up with something that were kind of those groups we serve, helping students that are prepared leaving high school and going to come to college, helping the groups of students that want to complete academic programs at two-year colleges, students that want to transfer to the UC or CSU, and then also ways to help our regional achievement gaps or achievement gaps for our students from the groups that are underrepresented. So they kind of set it up, the community college may use the funding appropriated pursuant to waive some or all the fees for first-time community college students. So that was kind of the intent for students that were going to a community college, first-time students enrolling full-time. The colleges could use money that was going to be given to them to waive those student fees. So they talk about that where the fee waiver can be used. The students would need to complete an application, like a FAFSA or a DREAM Act application. The primary reason being we use that to determine if they're eligible for aid. So if a student completes an application and they can receive the fee waiver or they're eligible for grant aid, that's better for the student. They're getting some financial aid help. But for those students who maybe aren't receiving any aid whatsoever, this funding could be used to help those students. And then fees could be waived only for the summer term or those semesters as long as the students were maintaining full time. Let's see.
Okay.
And then, did you want to?
Sure. So just like we said, everything seems to change. AB 2 came out in 2019, which is a trailer bill to AB 19, informing colleges that we should extend this to 2 academic terms, so 4 semesters. 2 academic years, 4 semesters. They also added a caveat in the legislation to the 12-unit rule. So prior to AB 2, a student had to be enrolled in 12 units. They made a special institutional exception for students who we certify at the local level with disabilities, could enroll in low as 9 units and still be eligible for this fee waiver. So this is the new change to AB 2. Okay, so eligibility requirements for a college to receive the funds. So this is what our college submitted in a plan to the state, which made us eligible for these funds. We have to partner with 1 or more local educational agencies. For us, some of the examples are our participation with the Tulare Kings Collaborative, our outreach programs with our feeder high schools, partnering with 1 or more local education agencies to support and improve high school student prep. And we see that through our dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, and early college partnerships. We also had to provide evidence that we are utilizing evidence-based assessment and placement practices, and that is through our AB 705 implementation. We also have to participate in the California Community College Guided Pathways Program, which I believe that plan is on up later this evening. And that our community college has to participate in a federal student loan program. And in the financial aid world, the federal student loan program is always hot debate. Should we offer those here, or should we let the students then take those out when they hit their 4-year universities? Interestingly enough, this legislation requires us to offer student loans, which we don't highly encourage for our students here. So you can kind of see how at the Chancellor's office they're really tying all of our programs together, making every pot of money kind of contingent upon the same things.
So how did that end up for us at COS? I think the flyer that went out, I have down in front, apparently what we give to students are, what students and parents need to know flyer. If you have a copy of that. So just the ones in front. The little.
They had a lot of highlights.
That one,
Yeah.
yes, there we go. So that's kind of what we give students right now, and then that's based off of Assembly Bill 2 is passed, so we're serving students who are in their first 4 semesters. So a student mustn't be a first or second year college student. They must complete a FAFSA or DREAM Act application. Then the students must enroll and complete with the passing grade of C or better, a minimum of 12 units. And we currently do not include summer sessions as an option to pay students. So we're doing the fall and spring terms. So if the student's enrolled, they take 12 or more units. If they pass those 12 units, we will pay the 12 or more units that they have passed with C or better. The student's account gets credited 6 weeks after grades are posted. So we kind of they don't have to fill anything out or do any special additional applications. We kind of run an in-house report, try to select that group of students, and then we review their grades and make sure they're in the right terms and they're eligible. And then we would post that grade to the student's account, to the cashier's office. They get a credit, so it's not a financial aid disbursement through the financial aid office. And then once that's there, the students have the option to apply that credit to a future check for their next semester tuition, or they can request a refund from the cashier's office. And we've done that for 3 semesters now. So again, the 18-19 year, when we rolled this out, fall 2018, that was the first year AB 19, and we were a little, at that time, and the agreement, as you as the board, kind of helped set up that first reimbursement plan that we do. We were kind of cautious, so we put that at a 15-unit requirement for the students. So in our first 2 semesters, the student had to pass 15 units to be eligible for reimbursement. We had 86 students that were eligible, completed the reimbursement, so we reimbursed $66,792. In the spring, we had 72 students and reimbursing just under $57,000. So our first year, we had 158 students, $128,000. The next slide will show what we received, how the budget worked. But so as we looked at that, we weren't getting the numbers we thought we might get. And the magic number for students, when we look at what they passed, what those kind of numbers used to be around like 14.2, 14.5 units that a student seems to easily be able to finish. The 17-unit number is a little more challenging. However, out of this group that did do it, their average unit completion was 17 units, so that's doing really well. But so we thought, okay, we have extra money coming in. We didn't get quite the numbers we thought, so when we rolled out our second year, we re-looked at that, and the board agreed to drop that to a 12-unit requirement. So we just finished the fall semester. We had much better results, 210 students completing. However, also remember, we're now doing 4 terms instead of just 2 terms. We can open it up to a 2-year group. So we've got more students who are eligible. We dispersed just under $145,000 in this first term, and still the average completion for that entire group came out to about 15 units a student. Spring, I'm kind of doing, for projections, I kind of went off last year, we had about 80%. Spring is usually a little bit lower numbers than fall, so if I'm kind of following that 80% of what we did in fall, we'd have around 175 students, or around $120,000 that we would disperse in spring. Again, however, I'll be in my, we're in 4 terms now. We've got students in 4 terms, so we still, I feel like we're kind of growing. We can grow into next year as well, but just kind of going with these numbers, kind of what we're looking at, what we're projecting. So funding-wise, if we kind of compare that, we started the 18-19 year with the 15-year requirement. Again, as a 1-year plan for the AB 19 that was passed, we received an allocation of just under $414,000. So we reimbursed around 113 without really doing anything else, with left us around $300,842 left at the end of that first year that was unspent. And the state, because we were rolling this out and this was new and colleges were still trying to figure out what did they want to do with AB 19 funds, they gave us a 2-year window to spend this first year's funds. So we're rolling $300,000 into our 19-20, our current year. Now that we're in a 4-semester or 2-year plan, they've given us $766,000 to spend, and that money does need to be spent by the end of this fiscal year, along with last year's money. We reimbursed fall, $155,000, estimating if we reimburse spring, $120,000. We've purchased some gas cards to help in the Student Success Program, $60,000 worth. Also, we've set up to purchase book vouchers for students at the $140,000 mark. So even with what we've done so far and looking for new ways to help students, we're projecting still a little over $500,000 left at the end of the year to come up with ways to get these out to students so it doesn't have to go back.
Just one of the things, at a state level, we're asking for another year of that rollover, just that flexibility, because it's really hard to figure out where the sweet spot is with spending until we kind of get flush with our new allocation each year. So we still don't know if they are going to let us roll funds over yet. We should know, I'm assuming, by March. But that has to do with that imbalance of that 591, whether or not we can roll any or not this year.
And if we can't, we have some strategies set up, funding maybe book vouchers, gas cards, other things for our Student Success Program, which we should probably point out that the students that we help in our Student Success Program are disproportionately impacted students. It's not an entirely mutually exclusive group. The students that are getting this AB 2 waiver versus the students that are in our disproportionately impacted group. But by and large, the students in our DIGs, as we like to call them, disproportionately impacted groups, they generally get a state promise. They're part of the 70% of our students that get a state promise. They wouldn't necessarily be getting AB2 funds to waive their fees, but they would be the beneficiaries of these gas and book vouchers. Is that right?
Correct. So yes, the state did write the law in a way to provide a lot of flexibility for community colleges. So you can help that one student group who's maybe not eligible for financial aid. We can help them maybe have those first 2 years of colleges free, first 2 years college free as well. But then also we can use the remaining funds to help any of the other student groups outside of that would need that support or something. So we have that flexibility.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm most proud of our college with these funds is one of the allowables is that we could put it in personnel and staff. And I'm personally happy that we've gone a different way, because the intent of the legislation is for direct assistance to students, but also it's incredibly hard to hire folks when we don't know the stability of the budget. And so I think it's great. I've personally seen our students really reap the benefits, especially our DIGs, as President Calvin refers to, because they have so much trouble finding just the money to get here in gas and books and all of those kind of things as well. So.
Is this the last slide? Oh, no.
Yes.
No, because I have something to add. No, I'm not. Sorry.
Time.
I'm not. Music, cue the music, Luann.
I'm afraid what's on my plate.
No, I'm not rushing you. I have a point to make going forward. So.
Okay. On this one or before the next one? Finish up.
Sure. Yeah. So some of the questions we get just kind of on the ground as we implement this is, does satisfactory academic progress apply? And so that is the normal, we call it the SAP, that how we decide in financial aid now if a student receives financial aid the following semester. So the legislation, AB 2 and nor AB 19, mention anything about academic progress. And so all it really says is that they must maintain the 12 units unless they hit the exemption with a qualified disability. So that's interesting, and kind of how the reimbursement kind of came up with our own rules to the game. It's because they do not mention it at all in the legislation. So we kind of threw out the what if, seeing that we do have funds in excess. What if COS adopts kind of a statewide model that we're seeing across the colleges, that instead of a reimbursement, the financial aid office would run their normal SAP appeal on every student each semester. And what that means, our policy is a GPA of 2.0 and a progress of 50% or more in their coursework. So the example we gave, just an easy example, is so students could earn 2 A's and 2 F's and remain eligible for the College Promise the following semester. Because right now, also, if a student doesn't qualify for the reimbursement, we don't have an appeal process for it. And we've kind of done that purposefully, because that means every student that didn't meet the qualifications, we would need another staff person to go through all of these appeals and what would be the criteria for that. So that's kind of where we are. That's the last slide.
That's the last slide. Okay. Dave, do you have?
Well, I think, yes, currently with the reimbursement, that's where the board, you did want some skin in the game. So the student pays their fees, they attempt a semester. If they're successful, we pay them back. And then each semester, they kind of get that clean slate. You didn't make it in the fall, you try to get in the spring, you were successful, we'll go ahead and disperse funds. Whereas the statewide model that a lot of colleges are doing, where if you were just kind of treating it almost like a fee waiver, we're paying the student up front, you're enrolling, you're a brand new freshman, you're in 12 units, we're going to waive your fees up front for you, so you don't have to worry about the reimbursement. So as long as you succeed and you maintain satisfactory academic progress with the college, and you enroll in 12 units the next semester, we'll continue to pay this waiver. However, if you don't enroll in 12 units, or for some reason you don't maintain academic progress with the college, then you would no longer be eligible for that waiver, and you're kind of done. So you could maybe come your first or second semester and not make it, and you're done, versus trying to or something like that.
So that's a segue into the point I want to make. Thank you, David. Is that, and I think I've talked to most of our board members individually about this. I was the biggest proponent of the reimbursement program. I liked having the skin in the game, and but a couple of things have sort of changed to change my mind on that. Obviously, our spend rate isn't what the state is giving us. We're going to end up sending back a substantial amount of money. It won't benefit our students if it gets sent back to Sacramento. That's one. Number two is that it's been used against us a little bit in student recruitment, where we'll have some of our neighboring colleges, and I don't think it's a systematic effort to do it. I just think there are people out recruiting students at high schools that say, well, why don't you come to our college because it's free. It's not free at COS. You've got to pay and hope to get reimbursed, that sort of thing. And even though 70% of our students have always gotten the statewide promise, just that kind of that negative talk, that we never had an opportunity to tell the other side of the story, that's bothered us a little bit. So we feel pretty comfortable recommending for the 2021 year, go to the statewide model, which is pay the fees up front, and as long as they make satisfactory progress, they'll earn it for the following year. If they don't, then they'll take a semester off. That would be our recommendation, but I really wanted to take the board's temperature, and because like me, I think you've all kind of liked the reimbursement program on this 30% of our population. So I wanted to check with the board just to see where you were at before we make any change in our policy.
Okay, so let's do that, and I'll be happy to take some input on that.
So the 30% assumes that they don't otherwise meet the financial qualifications in order to get the full waiver, right? So one could presume to some degree that they have some means to pay upfront, and then to get the reimbursement.
You'd think so, and I've thought that for a long time, John, and in some cases, that's absolutely 100% the case. You'd be surprised, though, students aren't emancipated from their parents until they're 24 years old. So we get them at 18, 19, they may be getting nothing from their parents. And it's a fairly lengthy process, because I've gone through it a time or two myself, for us to emancipate that student from their parents. So there's a fair amount of that does go on, where maybe the student wouldn't qualify for financial aid, or their parents wouldn't, but there's not a sharing of something.
Yeah, they don't have access to the resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to say, I found through experience, just people that I've heard or spoken with, that is the case, that the parents say, you're on your own, yet they don't get the financial aid because they have to turn in their parents' tax information. And for some of those students, it may even mean trying to work 2 or 3 jobs, and if this allows them to only work 1 and still go to school, they'll do it. My question would be, after 1 semester, though, if they're not successful, then they don't get it the next, correct? Or can we not do that?
You usually get a semester of warning. So if a student doesn't meet academic progress, they would be put on warning for 1 semester, and then they get that next semester to get themselves back in good standing, and if the second semester they still don't maintain progress, then they would be disqualified.
That's the standard way of
Because my fear is, kids talk, go to COS, enroll, you're going to get a check for $1,000. It's easy, go do it.
Well, this is not financial aid, though. This is a waiver of, so it would be $500 or $600 per semester.
Mm-hmm.
But these would not be the students that could qualify for a FAFSA, federal financial aid, where they get a check in their hand. This would pay for their classes.
It's a credit to their account, it's not a check.
Right.
They
But if you
can't
started
take
doing the
those
other things,
funds
it would be, right?
and go spend it on, whatever.
Right. But even if they get a gas card or book, that's still monitored.
It is.
I guess my fear is it'll be abused,
Right.
just because
They would have to be a
kids are
part.
kids.
They would have to be a part of the student success program, and they sign a contract that they'll meet with their student success coordinator. Is it 6 times a semester?
Okay.
It's no joke.
Okay.
There are some benefits there to being part of that program, but it doesn't come for free.
They're accountable.
Yeah.
And I get where you have to offer it up front like other colleges. That makes sense to me, in order for it to be not perceived as a negative, that, yeah, you can go there, but it's really not free because you have to pay up front, you know. I get that part, so I'm not opposed to it. As long as we have all the controls in place, I'm comfortable with what you're telling me.
I don't think anybody can game the system and walk away with money as a
Okay.
result of this. We'll just have to monitor it and see, does it take away kind of that skin in the game mentality, which is what we all liked. It's, you know, I would love to see our federal financial aid
Yeah,
system
no kidding.
do a little bit of that. But, you know, when it comes to aid, this kind of being used against us a little bit, I don't like that. And I also don't like the fact that, you know, we're gonna be hard pressed to not send money back to the state. I have confidence that we're gonna find a way not to send money back to the state, but.
We don't want to waste it either.
That was a little bit of a curveball too. I mean, we played it conservatively, thinking that the state would eventually just keep rolling it over for us. But they've said that they don't anticipate that. We're hoping to get one more year, but I don't think it's gonna be an ongoing rollover.
You know, I would kind of agree with the state. I mean, if they didn't, I could see this thing grow, you know, money sitting there in the pot not being used is not doing anybody any good, you know, and so.
And not being used for what they intended.
Right, and so from the standpoint that the funds are available and are not being totally utilized, and if we did have to send them back, and then the folks that are doing it, you know, up front, you know, they're getting the benefit, and we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, really, if we don't do it, so
I think we'll use the current surplus for things like book vouchers, and we'll have enough to carry us through all of next year, which will allow us to see what our spend rate is in this new format. And hopefully, we'll still be able to have money for book vouchers going forward. And we'll just make it a point to spend about 90%, plan on spending 90% of what the state gives us, not only on the fees, but also in book vouchers for the students that are part of our disproportionately impacted groups. Because I think it's important for us to see those students benefit from this AB 219 funding as well.
I agree.
I mean, am I correct? And if I analyze the numbers on the folks that are taking advantage of the program, it's a fairly significantly low number, given, you know, our FTES number, and if 70% of that gets the bog waivers, that still leaves a whole lot of students there that aren't taking advantage, for one reason or another, that aren't taking advantage of the
Again,
program.
this is designed for the students coming fresh out of high school, or, you know, our first 4 semesters. So out of that percentage that is not receiving the fee waiver, we have a lot of reentry students or students who function in other realms. So again, it does kind of shrink that.
It shrinks it down.
Yes.
First 4 semesters, and you've got to take 12 units, right?
It must be full-time, yes.
How many students were there that wanted to get reimbursed but didn't because maybe they got an F in math or English? What did the population start with from the 210? Do you guys have those numbers? Because I remember in the report before, it was a large.
I have my giant spreadsheet. I mean, I know I was kind of.
I want to say that last year was like 300 something wanted to get reimbursed.
science.
And because they didn't get a grade, or they failed English or math or something,
Right.
that they got disqualified in a sense.
Yeah, I was looking at the
So it
total.
is a larger population than 210 that are wanting to get reimbursed, wanted to go to college for free, but
Correct.
didn't.
So that's where you would kind of fall into that realm of, even if we move forward with the upfront waiver, they're attempting 12 or more units to start off with in good faith, you know, and then just like in that situation where they didn't complete that, or maybe they, like say, got 3 A's and got a D or an F, and it just, they still have the 2.0, they're still in good academic standing, but they weren't like 15 units exactly or more with a C grade or better for each and every class. So again, they're maintaining good academic progress, they're in good standing with the college, maybe they have a little bump in the road, but, you know, they're doing that job, we would still be maybe funding or waiving that up front.
And you guys wouldn't support having an appeal process if they fell into a category where they're not in good standing?
So and correct me if I'm wrong, but every semester for our current financial aid students, there's over 600 appeals. I'm trying to think of the amount that Amanda
Yeah,
is processing.
We're between 600 and 700. And this and what I'm looking at here, this is the college, so as a college, students must be on academic, standing and progress standing, so they must maintain GPA 2.0, complete 50% of the units they attempt. That's to be in good standing with College of the Sequoias and not be expelled. Federal financial aid requires me to be a little more strict, so I have our students that are receiving Pell Grant, Cal Grant, other federal and state aid must maintain a 2.0 GPA and must complete 67% of the units they attempt. So we're a little bit more strict, and then the federal government allows us to have an appeal process in place for students. With this assembly, or this language they put in the bill, they said there is no, they're not looking at SAP and they don't have any kind of a reason for appeal. I'd have to look, I don't know, if we were to go with the 50% 2.0, it's being, so again, a lot of our students are able to maintain that. I don't know how many of ours that go to we have the workshops every semester, what those numbers are like.
This appeal process would probably be about 1,400 students a semester. So currently, the college, for anyone on academic probation before they kind of get DQ'd from us and have to sit out a semester, is they've got to go to an academic progress probation. We talk about financial aid, bring in all the other resources, but those numbers are about 1,300 a semester.
So about 10 or 15% of the student population. Would you think that would be the same for this population, 10 or 15%?
It's hard to say, but I'm trying to think of I think that our success rates are higher for our first time college students than it is for our reentries. So it's hard to say. I feel like when I used to do those probation workshops myself, it was a lot of reentry students who had come 18 or 19, stopped out and came back, which wouldn't qualify per the state guideline anyway for this. So I think it's hard for me to guesstimate on that. Yeah.
But we would have the lower hurdle here, the GPA of 2.0, pass half your classes, as opposed to the federal, right? I mean,
67%.
that's a pretty low hurdle.
And I like that, again, this is more of a, chancellor's office, community college type thing, kind of similar to the way our fee waiver, the students receiving the BOG or the Board of Governors grant fee waiver, they're bound by this SAP right here. So a student could be disqualified from Pell Grant or federal aid, but they can still receive the fee waiver because they're at that 50% threshold. So, and that's kind of, again, it's a community college program. The fee waiver, this AB 19 is kind of, again, focused on community colleges and supporting us. So, I like the idea. We could apply our more stricter SAP, but I like the idea of keeping it in line with the college academic GPA and progress policy.
Do we have any numbers on that student population of how many were in, I guess you'd say, a more affluent family and how many were not? Do we have those type of figures?
Could probably try to run numbers. I mean, of those who complete FAFSA applications, we can definitely give you numbers. We send, if a student completes a FAFSA application and say the family income is too high to receive grant aid, they receive what we call it's like a no-need letter from us. So
Sure.
At least from the population that did complete the FAFSA application, we can kind of give you an idea of percentage of out of how many students complete, how many maybe didn't receive because the income was high. And then we'd have to try to break that down whether they were first or second year students versus any student. But we could definitely run and provide that kind of data.
Is there a population maybe that are paying for college but are not asking for reimbursement? They're just don't know about it, or
we do. Sometimes I come across those that they finally do complete the application, and we look at it, and there's a situation I'm kind of reviewing their history, and you have a lot of units or something, but you've only got 6 months of financial aid on the books or something like that. So I'll be, I was coming to school, working or paying on my own, and then I realized, I could complete this application and get some help, or I could do something. So yeah, there's all types out there going to school, or some of them are just, we try to say the FAFSA's not that difficult, or we have workshops to try to give you help, but some of them I just don't want to be bothered with the trouble to fill out that application, or I give the government, the government already has your tax information, but they get kind of funny for whatever reasons they may not want to fill out the application.
And I'm just asking more for if are there more students that could benefit from it that are not taking advantage of that? That's why it does sound like a low number.
I think if we had a little bit different rules to the game, that we have a lot of students that won't apply because they think, because their parents, quite frankly, don't file taxes.
Sure.
So they know right off the bat, because they hear from other students, well, if you can't turn in prior taxes or whatever it is we require, you're out of the game. And so with this, we do have a way, once they get to a certain place on the application, to kind of slide them out as, I mean, we'll do everything we can to try to get all that, do the same work that we always do, because we can get them more aid if they go the other route, through trying to apply for Pell, but there are a lot of students that won't do it. So we would probably change our marketing a little bit, which, you know, makes me a little nervous too, just because we never know exactly with the funding, but we did see it jump from 413,000 to 766 in an allocation. I just know anecdotally, working with the counselors, there's a lot of students that don't apply because they're ashamed, embarrassed, or whatever. Their parents won't provide, parents are incarcerated, et cetera. So there is a group out there.
I'm more inclined to increase marketing, and I'm not saying we're not doing enough marketing, but that's just where my mind goes. It's like, let's squeeze it a little bit harder. And to retain something for a reward piece as opposed to getting it up front, right? So I'm gonna say, I don't have the clear picture in my mind, but it's hard for me to say to somebody, go ahead and I'll pay for it, and then if you do or don't, you know, succeed, that doesn't really matter. You don't owe me anything back. That's just not, it didn't feel like that's real life to me. So that's part of what I would want to do, is to show them that, yeah, you do have to produce, and you get a paycheck as a result of that, right? So maybe your paycheck, in this case, is a gas voucher or something that would promote them even a little bit outside of the academic world, so they can say, well, okay, that's my reward. Again, I don't know what the picture looks like. It's hard for me to just kind of say, I'd almost rather send some money back and save a kid from, I don't say laziness, but lack of giving everything they can. I mean, that's just, I have a hard time with that. So that's my sense of.
Well, that was the idea from the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how much validity there is to it. I don't know. You and I work harder if we know we're going to be reimbursed. I'm not sure that's been our experience.
Yeah.
And again, I don't like the fact that we're one in the state that are doing it this way. We've kind of made our stand. It's kind of being used against us. I don't care for that. I don't like the fact that a high school senior or a group of high school seniors being told one thing, and we never have the opportunity to set it straight. That bothers me. If the money was being sent back to Sacramento and it was being, if all that's going to happen is going to be dispersed out to other schools that are doing what we're proposing to do now. That's a little bit of the challenge.
Well, yeah, that's,
Yep.
I understand what John's saying, and.
So do I. I'm the one that authored this thing.
My point to that would be, we're only hurting the students that may take advantage of it here, and if they go to West Hills, they're gonna have their opportunity to get the money that we turned down, kind of thing. So anyway, so what's the next step, I guess, in the process here?
Well, we do this every spring. This is our third year doing it, and you know, the initial year was kind of tinkering around and in my pitch for reimbursement, if you'll recall that. And then the second year was, gosh, we'd set it at 15 units. We weren't seeing enough students taking advantage of it. We could conceivably be sending a lot of money back, which is when we dropped it last year to 12, but we held firm with the reimbursement. And so we can certainly do that again if that's the direction the board would like to see us take, or we could keep it at 12 and do it up front, and you know, and maybe increase the marketing on, hey, you've got one shot at this, or if we're gonna grant a year or a semester of probation, we could look at that as well. I don't know if we have to do that though, do we?
No, just like I said, because the legislation doesn't really talk about any of that. It's a local decision.
So we could set up our own academic progress policy, which could include, to Lori's question, if someone doesn't maintain the 2.0 with 50% progress, then they don't get it for the next semester. If they do well that second semester on their own, they could be back on it for the third semester. But at any rate, after 4 semesters, they're kind of out of the system anyway. So.
Well, so I think maybe this ought to come back to us in some, because I think I hear some support for it, and I hear maybe some, we're missing one board member today.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'll bring it back as an
I
action
think-
item. How tight are we getting now, guys? I mean, we're rolling this out at high schools, right?
We are. We are. You're the one
Well, we
that's
start
stepping
our
back
high
this
school
phone.
messages, I mean, when we go back to September is when we start doing all the outreach, parent nights, information like that.
I'm talking about for the freshmen for fall
Yeah,
20.
no, we're
Oh, yeah, for the enrollment. Yeah, April, May.
just 22 on folders getting stuffed
Well,
right
we
now.
can't take action on it today anyway.
I wasn't asking for action. I was
Right.
trying
No, I know.
I was trying to take the temperature of the board.
Right.
Because we haven't done this as an action in previous years. We've just,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm of the opinion that,
You gotta do what you gotta do.
that maybe we restructure it to make it upfront. I mean,
Well, the student I think about is the one that registered but doesn't enroll. And I'm thinking, what is the reasons why they're not enrolling? It might be a financial reason. And if it was a marketing or, because I have met students before, or not students, community members who said, I didn't enroll, and I go, why didn't you enroll? It's because, well, I don't have the money to start, and then I can't get financial aid because my parents won't submit their taxes. And so they're working in a convenience store or something, and of course I tell them to visit, our counseling or our welcome center to get more information. But I imagine there's a lot of those students that are just saying, I can't take that next step because there's these barriers. And it would be unfortunate that we sent money back knowing that we could have helped those. So granted, there are students that are come from more affluent families and could pay for college, but I'm thinking about the ones that are having those barrier issues or financial issues. So
I think, I mean, once again, we're gonna track it, right? We'll see how it goes. We'll know, right, how many more we get and, right? We can.
Brent, I think Ray's got, okay.
I have a question. So, it's restricted to people like right out of high school. So even if somebody never went to college and is older, they can't use the program?
They would be okay.
They would be
As if
okay?
they had
The
ever
first 4
started.
semesters of
Okay, so
college,
just your
yeah.
first year, okay. So you know how like for regular financial aid, if they pay for your classes, or they give you the Pell Grant and you don't do well, they kind of take that money out of your next disbursement? Is there any way to do that for this? Because I understand that there has to be some sort of consequence, like not just paying for stuff and that's it. So I don't know, yeah.
we would have to send them a bill. Because unlike the financial aid qualifier, there's no more money coming into their account to take it from. It's a good thought, but we would have to send them a bill or have it on their account or something like that.
Okay. So the only way to do it is just disqualify them for the next semester?
Yes.
Disqualify them? I think so. I think we want to stay away from advertising it and then billing the student for it.
yeah, well, I'm seeing this as, we're here as a community college to serve the students in our area. We're being provided with an amount of money to provide their tuition for their first semesters. Our neighbors are doing this. We're trying to find creative ways to spend the money we have, and yet we're not willing to grant them the tuition up front. To me, we're going to potentially send the money back so West Hills, Fresno City, Bakersfield College can spend it. To me, that doesn't make sense.
No, and if we can get those 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 or 100, I don't know how many there are that come as a result of the free tuition and they come in and like it and stay and are successful, then that one person pays for the other 20 that maybe didn't make it, right? Because we would have got him anyway, so I think it's
Again,
gotta go.
I authored it from the very beginning, and
Yeah,
so.
and we all agreed with you, because I like that, but
I do too.
that's not realistic at this point.
I do too. I just, there's not a way for them to game the system, and.
Now, if you were the state chancellor, then that would be a different story. But yeah, but all the colleges
I
are
hear
doing
where
it.
John's coming from. I still like, I still like giving students the incentive. I just think there are other mitigating factors that have made me, I'm still convinced that's a good plan, but there's mitigating factors that make me kind of want to reverse field here and try it the way everybody else has, and then monitor it.
I think it needs to be
I'm not against paying those out-of-pocket costs up front. Yeah, I'm curious if we were to suggest that the full tuition be paid and, you know, X amount of books would be paid, or all I don't know how that works. Would there be anything at the end for that reward portion?
They could do it again.
Yeah, do we anticipate that, I mean, for the gas card, for the whatever else, you know, sweatshirt, I don't care what it is.
Right.
It's a token of our
Yeah.
graduation. You made it.
Right.
You did it. You know, here's your reward kind of a thing. And so it, I
For
mean.
doing what you were told, or
So I'm
what you
not saying
expected.
don't pay it and make them earn it that way. It's like, have them earn something though, at the end, maybe some token thing.
Yeah, maybe dissect it down a little bit more where there's kind of this and that, or,
But the reward would be that they get to do again the next semester. They get the free tuition. That would be the incentive of
They
doing
continue earning it, they don't go on probation. The books and the gas vouchers are only earned by virtue of continuous or continued enrollment in that program, correct?
correct. We look at the students that have been retained towards the end of the semester, so I think it'll be in April that disbursement starts. All the case managers submit their rosters of 700 or 800 students who have hit all the tickers and markers and are doing all the things they're supposed to, and then they're dispersed if they make it to that kind of level.
That's a different population than this population, is that correct?
Could be.
It's not mutually exclusive, but
Yeah.
as I said earlier, there are a lot of students in the student success program, because it's our disproportionately impacted groups, that they would already be getting a state promise.
I know, but isn't it students that are like in EOPS that are getting the vouchers and the gas?
Student success program is they do too, but we're not talking about EOP&S funds.
No, because they have an allotted amount through their mandate that they have to reserve.
We're
for just
using
those
the
things.
AB2 funds to do the same thing for our student success program, which is modeled after EOP&S. We're just able to serve that many more students.
Okay, so I'm having a little hard time figuring out what our next, so I'm kind of getting a somewhat of a consensus that we would move forward basically with what has been suggested, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that kind of gets monitored to some extent. I don't know exactly how, that maybe, you know, for the
And
fall
we'll work on some kind of an
semester,
incentive,
and
like John has
with
suggested.
that piece being put in place, and that, by that, we would give you some guidance that you can use moving forward in this regard. Am I saying that correctly, or do I need to
No.
reword that from?
That's accurate. Does that give the latitude,
Yeah,
President Kell?
I think so.
you need?
As you
I think
guys
so,
go
and I
into
think,
high schools
I
now,
like,
yeah.
we'll continue to work on some kind of an incentive, because I still like that. What are you working towards? You know, can we help you, can we incentivize success for you a little bit? So we'll continue to work on that, but at least it gets us on
Getting the
equal
word out
playing
there.
field with our neighbors, and we can
Start marketing
advertise
it that way.
this spring. Thank you,
Okay,
Julie.
well,
Thank you both
listen,
very much.
good discussion. Thank you
Thank you, board members.
for the presentation and the discussion, and so that would move us to the consent calendar. Item 8, All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. So we have 5 items on the consent calendar. Are there any items on the calendar today that need to be removed and acted on separately?
So moved.
If not, then we would have a motion to approve, and I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of consent calendar, items 6 through 10. Without further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Action item number 11. Dr. Lacerna is up for the curriculum.
Yes, I'm here to have you approve the exciting curriculum. And it has been approved, as you know, by, well, it is, because look at the first course. It's called Magic, Witchcraft, and Religion. And it was written by our very own anthropologist in the back, Dr. Marla Prochnow. So I'm saying
back to school.
This would be fun, right? But you know, it's actually interesting. At every college I've been to, they have that class, and we've never had it. So it's kind of fun. We have a new class in anthropology.
It's a very enticing title for a fairly boring book.
I'm going to tell you that is not true because she's a great teacher and she makes it all exciting. So that starts our exciting curriculum report off with that great new course to add to our anthropology list. And then we also have a change in our state fire training. And so we're doing a budget changes to fire. So this is a new course for the fire program. Then we have course modifications, which are 5-year reviews, and on page 1 and page 2, in chemistry, child development, communication, and those go through 1, 2 through page 3. On page 4, we have more comms, some dance classes, and English. They were all up for 5-year review. These are minor course modifications. Same on page 5, 5-year review for fashion, geography, geology. Page 6, we have 5-year reviews for history courses, an IA course, and iTech, and journalism. Okay. And the last page, some changes, 5-year reviews, minor changes for several courses: math, nutrition, political science, police, and psychology. And then we have a new program, Associate of Science in Culinary Arts, and that's a change to our culinary certificates and adding a program. Page 8, 2 other new programs in culinary arts replacing the current programs. And then modifications here for 5-year review in several of our AA degrees. And on the last page, 2-year review for some of our CTE programs and certificates in human services and in our IT program. There it is, starting off with magic, witchcraft, and religion.
Okay, so questions or comments for Dr. Lacerna?
Yeah, I have one actually on the first course there.
And she's here to answer it, look at that.
I'm
Who's
puzzled.
teaching it?
No. I'm puzzled by the statement. It says, currently COS students do not have an anthropology course from List C to choose. I don't claim to know what List C is, but I'm curious, are there other anthropology courses that could also be on this List C that would also satisfy?
So with the 3 courses that we currently have, they cannot use those courses twice. So you have to select courses from list A, B, and C. And so presently we don't have something for
Okay.
C.
So it's an expansion of the current?
Yeah, so
Okay.
for the transfer model curriculum. And it's following the chancellor's guidelines, and everybody in the state calls it this, and so all the
Yeah,
textbooks are.
that's too bad. Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and second to approve curriculum, new, modified, or deleted. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 12, Mr. Calvin.
It is that time of year to consider sabbatical funding for the 2021 year. We've done 2 semesters for the last couple of years. That's worked out well. They haven't all been used. In fact, last year's were split into institutional improvement projects, which are just 3 units of reassigned time to do smaller projects. I think that's a good way to split up the sabbaticals if in fact there are no takers on a full semester, full year. So we would make that recommendation to the board again this year, that they would consider funding 2 semesters worth of sabbaticals, and that would allow our academic senate, the faculty enrichment committee, to start accepting proposals, which is part of our AP 7341.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Just a comment, just a clarification, probably for my own mind only, but, and I run the question by Brent. Just the way it was worded, it was confusing to me. I just wanted to clarify for purposes of the public that it's really, it's the full amount of the salary. We should almost insert the word annual.
Annual.
But, yeah, annual instead of salary.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, so
it
2
isn't,
semesters.
you don't get half of your salary. You get all of it for that period of time.
2 semesters would be the equivalent of faculty person's annual salary.
Yeah.
And if.
1 semester.
If it's split up into 1 semester for this faculty person, 1 semester for this faculty person, they would each have half of their annual salary in a sabbatical, and then they'd be required to teach the other semester for the second half.
Yeah.
You're right. I think if we would have added the word annual to your example, I missed that last night.
I'm
Thank you,
very
John.
supportive of the concept.
Yeah, I move to keep it the same and approve 2 semesters of sabbaticals.
All right, so we
Second.
have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, board members.
All right.
We'll get to work on that.
Very good. Next item, Lucky 13, is annual board priorities.
This is the priorities.
We have that attached.
So this came out of our board retreat as well. After providing a progress update on all 6 of our board priorities, we agreed to, or proposed to keep these on the books with some minor tweaking, which you'll see there primarily on priorities 2 and 5. And then we went to add the 7th. And I think our discussion really centered around maybe something a little more specific than what I've proposed here on 7. And we can certainly modify this. It's your prerogative to modify this. But one of the things we talked about at our board retreat was working with Fresno State to develop some kind of a guaranteed admission program, more than what we have with the ADTs. We have the associate degrees for transfers that allow students to complete an ADT with a certain GPA and be guaranteed admission somewhere in the CSU program. What we'd like to do is work with Fresno State on maybe something that's just specific to College of the Sequoias. Call it Giant Bulldog Expressway, or whatever you want to call it, right? And with an ADT or something like it, and maybe a little higher GPA, COS students would be guaranteed admission into Fresno State. I've talked to Dr. Castro about that on a number of occasions. He likes the concept. there were just some things that we hadn't been able to kind of think through, challenges on his side. That would still be something we would work on. And I wasn't sure if the board wanted just to focus on that, because I'm not sure of our ability to pull it off. A lot of it rests with Dr. Castro, or if we wanted to use that as one strategy in this larger board priority, so that if we get a flat no or not right now, we're still working on some marketing outreach and growth planning with Fresno State. So I worded it a little vaguer than what we had discussed at the board retreat, and I'm happy to change it back. It just needs to come with the caveat that we don't control everything on that first one. We could certainly make progress on this, even if Fresno State didn't help, and I'm sure they would. But the first one, Dr. Castro, he's got some challenges that we would have to work through first.
I think maybe just for at least this year, because that was kind of an important part of that priority, that we maybe list that, knowing that we're not in control of it, but it makes us revisit it next year to see what progress has been made, and then we decide if we want to take it off. So maybe continue efforts to work with Fresno State on, you could even put marketing outreach, future growth planning, and a guaranteed admission program for the South Valley campus. And then next year we'll reassess. I like it.
The one thing that I considered, if I may, is I know that, as you mentioned, we had the conversation, it's not really up to us entirely. So I looked at it more as what is our goals really to transfer more students to Fresno State. And maybe we could make it very general where we are now having that type of relationship, but it'd be a priority that we focus on it. Of course, knowing that we are also interested in a special program for students who could get accepted in high school, do COS for 2 years, do Fresno State main campus, or maybe it's a cohort. They're applying for the cohort while they're in high school. And then so I looked at something that said, continue to foster partnerships to build the transfer pathway from COS to Fresno State. So really focusing on that transfer pathway versus being very specific to some of the things that we had a conversation about at our annual retreat.
Because the point is to get more students there. It's the how we get there.
Making sure they're well equipped, whether it's GPA or articulated classes, that we're doing all we can to make sure they have all their boxes checked.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we should rest comfortably knowing that we're doing a heck of a lot in that area.
Absolutely.
This conversation started because of our experience at these CSF luncheons, right? We go to these luncheons and we have, in Visalia's case, several hundred students up on stage. I'm going to UCLA, I'm going to Stanford, I'm going to here, and I sit there and I think, gosh, if only we had a mechanism or something that will allow these students
To say they're going to Fresno State.
to save a little face, to say I'm part of the Fresno State Deferred Guaranteed Admission Program. So that's what I've been kind of mouthing off about for 2 years.
You also said 2+2. I like that one. That was kind of Fresno
2+2.
State 2+2.
I've had a bunch of names for it.
Yeah.
But that's what we're kind of talking about here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to get that specific or if we want to focus on the transfer, knowing that that's part of the strategy there. So I will get more specific than this, but maybe not rest solely on.
Guaranteed.
Okay.
That's true. I'm
Yeah, that's
good with
why I
that.
mentioned just, build
Yeah, I
the
like
transfer
what Raina wrote.
pathway. Continue
I'll
to
work on the
foster-
language and we'll get that out. Build transfer path.
Otherwise, I think it's reflective.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal.
Okay.
So I don't know if we can craft the language right here on the spot.
No.
Do we want to table this until, how about we table this
So we
until
have
March,
something
and I'll bring it back?
So let's, with respect to number 7, you're saying, so what about 1 through 6? Are we okay with those? I am.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work a little bit on that, and then we'll see this again.
Yes, and let's
doesn't-
look at it again in
doesn't-
March.
Doesn't hurt anything. Okay, so item 13 wasn't so lucky. It's tabled.
We need a motion.
I move to table.
Second.
Motion and a second to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank
so
you. We'll
that's-
bring that back
so
in
that's
March.
done. And our favorite guided
showstopper.
pathways.
Yeah, the showstopper here.
And that's, Mr.
Is-
Calvin is going to take us to the finish line.
Well, I do want to acknowledge Dr. Robinson. She's done a lot of work on the guided pathways effort from the very beginning. And every time that we are prepared to submit a report, that the state, first of all, postpones it for 6 months. And in that 6 months, they'll change the formatting altogether, which has been quite frustrating. But you'll recall that guided pathways is something that every college has looked at a little bit differently. It's a little bit misleading in that high schools have specific pathways for content areas, a health pathway or a law pathway. That's not what this is about. Guided pathways for the California Community College system is a set of best practices that fall into several different pillars, is what they call them. And a lot of the things that we see in our strategic plan and our master plan are actually concepts that have been pulled out of the guided pathways. And you see on your first couple of pages there, what we've done is taken all of our objectives and our individual day-to-day actions from our 2018 through 2021 strategic plan, and we provided a crosswalk with all of the guided pathways key elements. So when you see those X's, that shows that we're accomplishing that specific key element for guided pathways while we're doing that particular action. So we've submitted this to the State Chancellor's office. They've actually used it as a prototype to try to get other colleges to embed this work in their normal integrated planning. We're pretty proud of it, and it's worked out well for us. So what they've asked us to do by March 1st is approve just kind of an update as to where we're going and the success that we've had. And what they've asked us to do is say where are we at plan, or where are we at scale, I should say. And that's where you see planning to scale, or you see what's the other one, at scale, or there's one more, scaling in progress. So they give us 3 different levels of where we're at, and that's what you see in front of you. For each one of these pillars and the various practices within pillars. Again, this is a whole new report. Last year it was called something different, so we had to go and change kind of our data sets and so forth, but the concept is still very much the same. Are you making progress in these areas, and where are you at scale? You'll see it here one time about every other year when we have to approve this. Otherwise, you see it every year in the annual report on the master plan, because all of these guided pathways elements are embedded in our strategic plan on an annual basis.
Are they worded the same way though, or no? They're in different parts.
Well, you can see they're not. It's
Like
two different authors. I mean, we author our strategic plan.
Yes.
It's based on the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success and guided pathways. So we don't always use the
Same exact
language
language.
verbatim, because there's several different sources that we use. But you can take any one of these practices and you see that our progress to date will list the progress we've made on actions. This is the same language that you saw in our annual report on the master plan. So it just allows us to do that one time a year, and then where appropriate, pull that language out and include it in a guided pathways update. So it wouldn't be exactly the same. Again, you'd have to our crosswalk is very helpful to see what's what, but then also just in any of these, practice A under pillar 1, you see that we include action 212 in our work on meta majors. So practice A is programs are organized and marketed in broad career-focused academic and communities or meta majors, and that's what we get from the State Chancellor's Office. So then we give them the action in 212, which is the work that we're currently doing in meta majors. The summit we had last week, that fits right under there, and we're planning to scale. We're not at scale yet.
Okay.
So that's how this all works. And it's pretty much in alignment. I'm not gonna say it's 100% aligned, because coming down from the chancellor's office, nothing is 100% aligned. But Eloy spent quite a bit of time with us going through this, and he personally was very impressed with just how well we've embedded the guided pathways, key elements into our integrated planning and our strategic plan.
You would think they would make that a little easier and that everybody could just do it.
Yeah.
Because that would be the goal, right?
Yeah. But even like his vision for success doesn't
Right.
align exactly with that. And we've gone through, I mean, you guys have approved the integrated plan here, the seed plan. We've had several different kind of versions of this, and we're at this point, we're just kind of saying no new initiatives, as Mr. Hurst said earlier. Let's stick with one thing for a while so we can all just kind of get familiar with it. But this is what we've done. I'm happy to answer any questions for you, but essentially it's regurgitating the information we provided in our annual report on the master plan in the format that they wanted.
Okay,
Yes.
questions
Great.
for Mr. Calvin?
I actually just want to say I was really impressed with the content that's laid out here, and I commend the superintendent and administration. There's some points in here that I wanted to highlight. Action 3.2.2 talks about implementing frequent and intrusive follow-up services for disproportionately impacted students, and really tells me that that students are not falling through the cracks. They're our staff is really trying to make them become more successful, and I really enjoyed reading the tactics that are being used to help our students. So,
Thank you, Raymond. I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you reading it all the way through.
So you bring this to us once a year?
Well, it hasn't been here about every other year.
It was supposed to come last September, and then they
Changed it.
postponed it and changed the term, so.
Don't hold us to the timeline because we don't
Okay,
control
well,
it.
Because they changed the form. I see.
Yes.
So-
Yeah, they changed some of the pillars and.
Yeah.
We were prepared to submit it in September, and I think what happened was a lot of districts in our state didn't have anything. So they
Right.
asked for an extension. So they extended it 6 months, but the heartburn that we had was they changed the whole format and process. So essentially, we've
Yeah.
done two of
Yes,
these,
yes.
in the old format and this new format.
Yep. And which one do you like better, though? Was this one, did they improve it, or no? That's just, no. Darn it, I was hoping for once, the new form could be
But
better.
it's done.
New and improved. Doesn't happen.
All right, so don't bring it to us for 2 more years.
All right. You got it.
And if
I
it's
think
not
that's-
improved, then,
I think that's a blanket approval.
yeah, I'm going to approve the recommendation with future reports included. No,
All right, other questions, comments? None.
motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the Guided Pathways Report. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. Unanimous. So, that's the last item on our agenda. When I looked at the minutes from the last meeting, the meeting in January, we adjourned at 5:35. So today we adjourn at 7:20 or so. So on average, we're doing pretty good. So
Doing
with
okay.
that, thank you all for sticking through the
Last
whole
time
meeting
David
with
asked
us.
me if everything was okay.
And meeting is adjourned.
Pretty nice crowd.
Is everything okay?
7:30.
Like, did you leave early? Are you okay? Exactly. Or did you get fired?